Welcome to NorCal Tea Party Radio.
All across the nation, the party's just begun. Voices speaking loud and clear, there are battles to be won. Gather here, reunite, join the revolution, 'cause we are strong, standing tall, upholding the Constitution. We the people say.
And now the host of We the People NorCal Tea Party Radio is Ginny Rapini. Jenny is the coordinator of the NorCal Tea Party.
Welcome to We the People Radio. NorCal Tea Party welcomes you here today on KTKZ. Let me tell you first what we stand for as a Tea Party. We stand for three core values: fiscal responsibility, constitutionally limited government, and the free markets. Pretty simple, pretty basic, and it's hard to disagree with that. Another thing that differentiates us from many of the Tea Party groups that are out there is we are not a political action committee, and we do not accept funds from any political party. We are separate from the Republicans, the Democrats, the Libertarians, all of them, because we feel in ways all of them have lost their way, and we are just true conservatives, constitutionally oriented, wanting to get our country back to our founding principles. Our sponsor this month is Del Rapini Construction, and if you recognize that last name, that is my husband. And he is a vital part of the NorCal Tea Party group, and he is a developer who fights for individual property rights. Our guest today is Dean Forman. Dean is on the board of the John Adams Academy, which is a charter school that goes from kindergarten to 12th grade. And this school truly educates students honestly about American history in a way that produces proud, competent, college-prepared students who love learning and also wind up graduating loving their country. Is that right, Dean?
That's right. The mission of John Adams Academy, and you'll relate to this, is to restore America's heritage by developing servant leaders who are keepers and defenders of freedom, for which our founding fathers pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. And you probably recognize the end of that as well.
I do recognize that when you talked about servant leaders. Now, wait a minute. Don't leaders just sit back and tell you what to do, and you are their servant? Isn't that the way we're set up?
I don't think so. Servant leadership, we believe, has to do with a matter of, if you look at education today, education has kind of become employee education or professional education. And they tell you each individually what to think or when to think. Mm-hmm. But leadership education teaches you how to think. Mm-hmm. And it does that through classics and some other things that we'll talk about.
So learning how to think, do you think that's really more important than me telling you what to think?
I know it is, because if you talk to employers, they will tell you, we can train people for just about anything. But what we can't train them to do is how to think.
Right.
And if we have people that know how to think, we can have great employees and a great organization.
We were talking just before the show about a situation here at the radio studio where, again, learning how to think and problem solving and conflict resolution, it's all learning how to think, not what to think. You can follow a rule book and it doesn't get you really anywhere. So explain the learning structure that you have in place there at the John Adams Academy.
Our learning structure is Socratic in the way that we approach life.
Okay, you used a word I don't know.
Okay, so Socratic comes from Socrates, and he is known for what is the purpose of life or what is the meaning of life. And in a Socratic classroom, you don't have a teacher regurgitating things and employees or students memorize rote things to regurgitate on a test, maybe never to use them again in their whole life. You've heard the child say, why do I need to know this? What does this have to do with life? Well, Socratic teaching asks them questions. Why, when, how, They're open-ended questions that get them to think, and then to interact with not only the teacher, but each other. The teacher should be more of a facilitator, and the students, through the interaction or the Socratic questioning, actually engage in dialogue so they learn how to speak, how to read, and how to write.
So give me an example of a Socratic question.
Well, I did with Socrates. What is the meaning of life? Or better yet, what we want our students to know is, what is my special excellence? Socrates wanted to know, what is it special about you that you bring to the world? Because you are unique. There's no one else in the whole world like you. And if you can recognize what that excellence is, you'll then be able to take it out into the world or to our country and share it with others. And that's how you develop servant leadership, is taking your special excellence and applying it to real world situations.
Do you help the student discover what their special excellence is?
I hope so, because that is one of the core missions. And the way we do that is to help them to explore classics of literature. And if I may, a classic is chiefly through books we enjoy intercourse with superior minds, and in the best books, great men and women talk to us. They give us their most precious thoughts and pour their souls into ours. So in other words, when you sit down with a classic book, you are in essence having a dialogue with a great man or woman of history, whether it's Washington, Jefferson, John Locke, Aristotle, Socrates, Plato. And as you engage in that and you sit on the other end with your book in your hand, you're able to hear directly from them what they were saying instead of from a textbook of someone interpreting what they think they said.
So what would you consider to be some of the classics?
Well, and let me state too, a classic doesn't have to be a book. A classic could be a work of art. It could be, we hear classic automobiles. I happen to think there's even some new automobiles that are classics just because they're unique in some of the things they do. But getting back to books, some of the books that are classics would be, if you go to George Washington, his writings, actually reading the original writings, reading original writings on John Locke, reading the Republic by Plato is a classic that is a must on reading lists. Taking students to reading something like Mother Teresa's work on what she did, that is a classic. A classic, what defines it is something that can be visited over and over again and teach you something new every time you read it or visit it.
Would the Bible be considered a classic?
That is the classic, capital T-H-E. That is the classic. That's the classic of the Western world. If people look to the Bible, and most people don't know this, but the book of Deuteronomy was the foundation for the Constitution. Without the book of Deuteronomy, we wouldn't have a Constitution today. And so, yes, that is the book.
And we try to say that we can't legislate morality, and yet all our laws are based on the Ten Commandments.
They have to be.
Well, not all of them. Now we have carb, and we have sheets that have to be fitted and can't be flat. I mean, But the basic premise of where we started from was that foundation of the Bible. And yet, Obama told us that we are not a Christian nation, we're not a Jewish nation, we're not a Muslim nation, we're just a nation of citizens. What do you think of that?
We are a nation of Americans. And you define an American, I believe, by someone that understands providence. In other words, that God has a mission for me and for you, and my job is to find out what that is. An American is someone who understands ownership, that I own part of the land or the home or the automobile, because throughout the world, they haven't known what ownership is. That's why people came to America. The other thing that makes an American is this idea of public virtue, where you will set aside personal benefit for the benefit of others once you know what your mission or special excellence is.
Do you also think that part of being an American is accepting personal responsibility for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Or is it the government's job to or your job as an educator? Isn't it your job to provide that for my kids?
Our job as educators is to teach our youth and children how to take personal responsibility for their actions. In other words, you have a choice. This is America. But you cannot choose the result of that choice. In other words, the consequence. You can make a decision, but the consequence will be already made up because it relates to natural law and the Ten Commandments. In other words, there is a law of nature, or as Jefferson said, nature's God, and that law cannot be violated. To the extent you violate that law, you are in violation of, say, gravity, for example. If you try to violate it, you're going to fall every time. There are natural laws of the universe, and that's what this country was founded on.
Okay, so when you're talking about leadership education, so from K through 12, are you teaching elements of leadership to all kids on how to become leaders, or are you only concentrating on those kids that are natural leaders? Can you teach a non-natural leader to be a leader?
Yes, you can, but you teach it in the realm of their special excellence, as I mentioned earlier. And the way they discover who they are or what they should do is by reading classics, because when they read a classic about, say, Helen Keller or Mother Teresa or Thomas Jefferson, who has lost his father at age 15, or many others, as they read about them, they will encounter someone who has done something that they go, wow, that was an ordinary person that did an extraordinary thing, because they discovered who they were and they went out and did it. And that's what this education is about doing. It's about engaging them to have that spark happen as they interact in classics. And the key to that is we also have mentors that come in on Fridays for about 50 minutes to an hour and a half. And they take them through a classic for that mentor. So for me, for example, I mentor civics. So I have a book called The 5,000-Year Leap.
Oh, that's an excellent book.
And I take them through the 5,000-Year Leap, the 28 principles. They memorize the principles. And during that time, then I tell them how that relates to what they're doing today. Mm-hmm. And that's always fun to do.
Yeah, that book is an excellent book, and I can see how being broken down to the kids, what a great thing that would be. We have a break coming up really quickly. I want to see if you can answer this quick. If not, we'll take it on the other side of the break. But do you teach kids the human side of these great leaders as well? I mean, we're going to have to take this on the other side of the break, because I do have a long question for you on that one. But anyway, we are up against a break right now. We welcome you to We the People Radio, NorCal Tea Party, right here on KTKZ 1380 with Dean Forman of the John Adams Academy. We will be right back.